I'm Isabella Reed, 28 years old. All my life, I only wished for love and recognition from my family. I always hoped that on my wedding day, at the very least, my parents would stand by me smiling with pride as I walked down the aisle. But what I got instead was cold indifference. They dismissed my wedding as a trivial event for someone at the bottom and chose to fly off to celebrate with my sister. As I stood there in my wedding dress searching for their faces, I saw them instead, online, laughing, raising their glasses, living it up in luxury, as if my day meant nothing. My heart shattered in that very moment. And yet the pain didn't stop there. Only days later, they shamelessly called me with another demand, as if everything they had done wasn't enough. That was the moment I realized if I didn't draw the line, I would forever remain invisible in their world. Have you ever longed for your family's love and support, only to be met with coldness or rejection? Share your thoughts and stories in the comments. I truly want to hear them. I grew up in Toledo, Ohio, in a middle-class neighborhood where appearances mattered more than anything. My parents, Joseph and Ruth, built their world around looking successful. The house was always spotless, the lawn trimmed, and every holiday card painted the picture of a perfect family. But behind that facade, it was clear who the star was: my sister Cheryl, the golden child. She was everything my parents dreamed of: charming, ambitious, destined for greatness. By the time she was in high school, they were already bragging about her future as a lawyer. Me, I was the quiet one, the kid who loved sketching and dreaming up designs. My passion for art didn't fit their vision of success, so it was brushed aside. I still remember showing my dad a colorful cityscape I had drawn. He glanced at it, muttered, "That's nice, Isabella," and quickly turned back to talking about Cheryl's debate team. That became the pattern of my childhood. Her victories celebrated, mine barely noticed. When I was 10, I won a school art contest and proudly brought home the certificate, hoping for once to shine in their eyes. My mom only nodded and said good job before turning to hang Cheryl's medals on the living room wall. Meanwhile, they threw a huge party when Cheryl graduated, inviting neighbors to celebrate her college acceptance. My straight A's earned nothing more than a pat on the back. As we grew older, the favoritism only grew clearer. Cheryl got a new laptop for her tournaments. I got a hand-me-down sketchpad. My parents drove hours to watch her competitions, but when I had my first art show at 14, they were too busy with work. I stood alone in the school gym, my drawings pinned to a corkboard, while other kids' parents snapped photos with pride. That night, I overheard my mom telling a neighbor Cheryl is going places. High school brought more of the same. Cheryl was away at college collecting awards in pre-law, and my parents couldn't stop boasting. They'd put her on speaker during dinner to gush about her internships. I tried to share that I'd been accepted into an art program at a local gallery, but my dad cut me off with, "That's great. But did you hear about Cheryl's offer from a law firm?" My dreams were invisible. The only person who truly encouraged me was my art teacher, who kept pushing me to pursue design when my parents wouldn't. When Cheryl came home for breaks, it was a full celebration. My parents cleared their schedules, cooked her favorite meals, and hung on her every word. Meanwhile, I was asked to clean up. Once I overheard my mom telling Cheryl, "You're our ticket to a better life." I sat on the stairs clutching one of my designs, realizing I wasn't their priority. I was barely even seen. By my senior year, I stopped chasing their approval. I poured everything into my portfolio, and with my teacher's help earned a scholarship to study graphic design. My parents simply said, "That's nice, but be practical." Yet they had no hesitation taking out a loan for Cheryl's law school, calling it an investment in the family. At 18, I finally got my first real break. A gallery in Toledo invited me to exhibit my work. It was the moment I had dreamed of. I sent my parents an invitation, hoping they'd show up. They didn't. Instead, they threw another party for Cheryl's law school acceptance. I stood in that gallery, surrounded by strangers who admired my art, feeling proud but also hollow. What I wanted most, my family's pride, wasn't there. That night, I decided I would no longer chase their validation. I'd build my own future even if they never cared to see it. Leaving home for college felt like a fresh start. I enrolled at a university in Ohio, majoring in graphic design, determined to carve my own path. Early on, I met Michael Foster, a teaching assistant in my intro to art class. He was kind with a quiet confidence, and he saw potential in my work. We'd spend hours discussing design trends, and he'd push me to refine my projects. Around the same time, I met Nicole Hayes, a photography major with a sharp wit and endless energy. She became my closest friend, always ready to critique my sketches or drag me to art events. With Michael and Nicole, I finally felt like I belonged. My first year was tough, but exhilarating. I pulled all-nighters perfecting logos and layouts, driven by a need to prove myself. My professors noticed, and one connected me with a local design studio for an internship. By my junior year, I was juggling classes and freelance gigs creating branding for small businesses. It wasn't glamorous, but every project felt like a step forward. I'd send my parents updates hoping they'd care. They didn't. My mom called once not to ask about my work, but to see if I was keeping up socially compared to my sister Cheryl. Apparently, Cheryl was thriving in law school, interning at a prestigious firm. Joseph and Ruth never missed a chance to remind me how she was setting the family up for success. In my senior year, I landed a big break, a contract to design a campaign for a regional advertising agency. It was my first real taste of professional success. I spent months crafting visuals, tweaking every detail until it was perfect. When the campaign launched, it got praise in a local industry blog, and my name was attached. I was over the moon, thinking maybe now my parents would see my worth. I emailed them a link to the article, expecting at least a congratulations. Instead, my dad replied, "That's nice, but have you talked to Cheryl? She's working on a big case." My heart sank. I showed Nicole the email, and she just shook her head, saying, "They don't deserve you." Michael was different. He celebrated every milestone, no matter how small. When I showed him the campaign, he took me out for coffee and spent an hour asking about my creative process. He wasn't just supportive, he got it. We started dating that year, and his belief in me made me bolder. I took on bigger projects like rebranding a chain of local coffee shops. The work was demanding, but it paid off. By graduation, I had a portfolio that landed me a full-time job at a mid-sized agency in Toledo. I was 22, building a career I loved, and I thought my parents might finally take notice. Nicole became my lifeline. We'd meet up at a diner near campus where she'd rant about how unfair my parents were. "You're killing it, Isabella," she'd say, slamming her coffee mug down. "They're too blind to see it." She pushed me to focus on my own goals, and I did. I took on more freelance work designing websites for startups and posters for local festivals. Each project built my confidence, and I started to care less about my parents' approval. But deep down, it still hurt. I wanted them to see me just once the way they saw Cheryl. By my mid-20s, I was thriving. My agency promoted me to lead designer on a major account, a national retailer needing a full rebrand. It was a six-figure contract, a huge deal for someone my age. I called my parents, hoping this would be the moment they'd finally acknowledge me. My mom picked up, sounding distracted. I told her about the project, my voice shaking with excitement. She paused, then said, "That sounds like a lot of work. Have you checked in with Cheryl? She's been so busy." I hung up, stunned. That was the last time I tried to share my success with them. That call pushed me to focus on the life I was building with Michael. After that final call with my mom, I poured my energy into building a life with Michael. One evening, as we strolled along the Maumee River, Michael proposed with a simple ring, his eyes full of hope. I said yes, my heart soaring. We planned a small wedding at a riverside restaurant in Toledo, a place we cherished for its warm ambiance. I spent months designing the invitations, each stroke of my pen filled with love. For the first time in years, I let myself hope my family would show up. Maybe this milestone would finally matter to them. I sent invitations to my parents, Joseph and Ruth, and my sister Cheryl. I called to confirm, my voice shaky as I left a voicemail for my mom. "It'd mean everything if you could come." My dad texted back, "We'll try to make it." I held on to that faint promise, convincing myself they'd be there. Cheryl, caught up in her own engagement to Jeffrey Coleman, her entrepreneur fiancé, didn't respond to my message. I kept hoping she'd at least acknowledge it. Days before the wedding, my mom called. I braced myself, expecting questions about the ceremony. Instead, she said, "Isabella, we're not coming. This is a trivial event for someone at the bottom, and we're busy with Cheryl's engagement." Her words cut deep. I asked what she meant, my voice breaking. She explained they were flying to Hawaii to celebrate Cheryl's engagement with Jeffrey. "It's a big moment for us," she added, dismissing my wedding like it was nothing. I hung up, my hands shaking. Michael held me as I cried, promising we'd make the day ours. The wedding day came, and I walked down the aisle in a dress I'd designed, feeling Michael's steady gaze. Nicole was there, snapping photos and cheering louder than anyone. Michael's parents, George and Diane Foster, embraced me like their own, their kindness softening the sting of my family's absence. But as I stood at the altar, I couldn't help glancing at the empty chairs meant for my parents and sister. It hurt, but I focused on Michael's vows, letting the love in the room carry me. The reception was filled with laughter and warmth from friends and Michael's family. I felt cherished, but a piece of me still longed for my parents' presence. That night, after the final dance, I checked my phone, hoping for a message from them. Instead, I saw a social media notification from my mom. My stomach sank as I clicked. It was a video from Hawaii: Joseph, Ruth, Cheryl, and Jeffrey on a beach, laughing, holding tropical drinks under swaying palms. The caption read, "Celebrating our star's engagement in paradise." Cheryl beamed next to Jeffrey while my parents grinned carefree. Not a word about my wedding. I watched the video again, each frame searing into me. They hadn't just skipped my day, they'd broadcast their choice to the world. Nicole found me staring at my phone, tears streaming down. "They don't get to hurt you like this," she said, wrapping me in a hug. Michael joined us, his face tight as he saw the video. "You're worth more than this," he said. George and Diane offered to reach out to my parents, but I shook my head. I didn't want their apologies. I wanted them to care, but they didn't. The next day, I replayed the video, trying to grasp why they'd chosen this. Cheryl hadn't even sent a text. My parents hadn't called to check in. They'd picked a lavish trip over their daughter's wedding, and that video was their boast. I felt like I was nothing to them, like all my efforts to shine meant zero. But sitting with Michael, his hand in mine, I realized I couldn't let their rejection break me. I had a family. A week after my wedding, I tried to focus on my new life with Michael, settling into our apartment in Toledo. But then my phone rang. It was my dad, Joseph. His voice clipped and businesslike. "Isabella, we need to talk about the loan," he said. I froze, confused. He explained that he and Ruth expected me to contribute to a loan they'd taken out years ago, supposedly for my college tuition, to help cover Cheryl's upcoming wedding. "It's only fair," he added, "since Cheryl's event is a big deal for the family." I was stunned. Cheryl's wedding. The same sister who couldn't bother to text me about my own. I took a deep breath, trying to stay calm. "What loan?" I asked. Joseph claimed it was a $20,000 loan from my college days, one they'd covered for me. His tone implied I owed them, like my wedding hadn't mattered, but Cheryl's was worth my money. I told him I'd look into it and hung up, my heart pounding. Michael, sitting nearby, saw my face and asked what was wrong. I explained, and he shook his head. "They can't keep doing this to you," he said. I pulled out my old financial records that night, digging through folders I hadn't touched in years. Every payment for my college loans was there, paid on time, every month, straight from my own account. I'd worked freelance gigs and taken extra shifts at the agency to cover those loans without their help. There was no outstanding debt tied to Joseph or Ruth. I double-checked with my bank, and the representative confirmed my loans were cleared years ago. Joseph's claim was a lie, a ploy to guilt me into funding Cheryl's lavish wedding. The next day, I called my dad back. My hands were steady, but my voice was sharp. I checked the records, I said. My loans were paid in full, on time by me. There's no debt. He sputtered, insisting I must have misunderstood. Cheryl's wedding is important, he said. You should want to help your sister. I could hear Ruth in the background murmuring agreement. That's when it hit me they'd never see me as equal. They'd dismissed my wedding as trivial, and now expected me to bankroll Cheryl's as if my life was just a footnote to hers. I thought of that video from Hawaii, their laughter, their complete disregard for me. I thought of Ruth's words calling my wedding a trivial event for someone at the bottom. Anger surged, but I kept my voice cold. Don't contact me about trivial matters, I said, throwing her own words back at them. There was silence on the other end. Joseph started to argue, but I cut him off. I'm done, I said, and hung up. My heart raced, but I felt a weight lift. For the first time, I wasn't begging for their approval, I was taking back my power. I told Michael everything, and he pulled me into a hug. You did the right thing, he said. I called Nicole next, needing her perspective. She was furious on my behalf. They're unbelievable, she said. You don't owe them a dime. George and Diane Michael's parents came over that evening. When I shared what happened, Diane reached for my hand. You're family to us, she said. You don't need their validation. Their support grounded me, reminding me I wasn't alone. But the call lingered in my mind. Joseph hadn't just asked for money, he'd tried to rewrite my past, claiming I owed them for a debt I'd already paid. It wasn't just about the money. It was about control, about keeping me in the shadow of Cheryl's spotlight. I thought about reaching out to Cheryl, hoping she'd at least explain. But her silence during my wedding told me everything. She was complicit, happy to let our parents prioritize her while I was left to clean up their demands. I sat down with Michael that night, looking over our wedding photos. Nicole had captured every moment, my smile, Michael's vows, the joy of our chosen family. I realized I didn't need Joseph, Ruth, or Cheryl to define my worth. I'd built a career, a marriage, a life, all on my own terms. Their attempt to pull me back into their drama only strengthened my resolve to move forward without them. Standing firm against Joseph's demand was a turning point in my life. I was exhausted. I decided to cut off all contact with them. It wasn't a rash decision, but a necessary step to protect my own peace. I started with Dr. Scott, who Nicole had been seeing for her own stress. Dr. Pamela Scott, a therapist with a calm presence and sharp insight, met with me in her Toledo office. I poured out my story, the years of being overshadowed, the pain of my wedding, Joseph's audacity to demand money. She listened, nodding, then said, You've been carrying their expectations far too long. Setting boundaries is about reclaiming your life. Her words hit home. She suggested a formal email to make my decision clear and final, something I could control without their interruptions. Michael was my rock through it all. We sat at our kitchen table, his hand on mine as I drafted the email. You don't owe them anything, he said, his voice steady. Write what you need to say. Nicole came over, bringing her usual fire. They've had enough chances, she said, pacing our living room. This is about you now. Their support gave me the strength to face the task. I spent hours crafting the email, wanting every word to reflect my resolve. The email was addressed to Joseph, Ruth, and Cheryl. I wrote, Your actions have shown where I stand in your lives. From the years of favoritism to dismissing my wedding and demanding money for Cheryl's, you've made your priorities clear. I'm done carrying the weight of your expectations. Do not contact me again. I kept it short, firm, and unapologetic. Dr. Scott reviewed it, suggesting I add a line to clarify my boundary. Any future attempts to reach me will be ignored. I did, feeling a sense of control I'd never had with them before. Sending that email was terrifying. My finger hovered over the button, my heart racing. Michael sat beside me, saying, You're doing this for you. I hit send, and a wave of relief washed over me. It was done. I blocked their numbers and social media accounts to seal the boundary. Nicole hugged me tight, saying, "You're free now." Dr. Scott in our next session praised my courage. "You've chosen yourself," she said. "That's powerful." The days after were strange. I kept expecting a call or text, some attempt to pull me back, but none came. Cheryl, who'd been silent through my wedding, stayed silent. Joseph and Ruth didn't respond. Their absence confirmed what I'd always known: they didn't value me. It hurt, but it also freed me. I wasn't chasing their approval anymore. I leaned on Michael, who reminded me daily that I was enough. Nicole kept me grounded, dragging me to art galleries to keep my creativity alive. George and Diane, Michael's parents, stepped up in ways I hadn't expected. They invited us over for dinner, treating me like their own. Diane shared stories of her own family struggles, saying, "Sometimes you have to let go to move forward." Their warmth filled a void I'd carried for years. With their support, I started to see my worth beyond my family's rejection. Dr. Scott helped me process the guilt that crept in, reminding me that boundaries weren't selfish, they were self-preservation. I threw myself into my work, taking on new design projects to channel my energy. Each logo I created, each campaign I led, felt like proof of my strength. Nicole noticed the change, saying, "You're glowing, Isabella. They can't dim that." Michael and I began planning our future: a house, maybe kids, without the shadow of my family's drama. I felt lighter, like I'd shed a weight I'd carried since childhood. But cutting contact wasn't just about walking away. It was about rebuilding. Dr. Scott helped me see that I'd been shaped by their neglect, but not defined by it. I started journaling, something she suggested, to process my thoughts. Each entry felt like a step toward healing. I wrote about my anger, my sadness, but also my hope. I was building a life with people who saw me, who valued me. That was enough. Letting go of my family was a weight lifted, but it sent ripples through their world. Joseph and Ruth faced backlash they hadn't anticipated. Our extended family, who'd heard about their absence at my wedding and their demand for money, began pulling away. My cousin Mary was the first to speak up. She'd always been close to me, and when she learned about the Hawaii trip and Joseph's loan claim, she was livid. "They've always put Cheryl first," she told me over coffee in Toledo. "But this, it's shameful." Mary stopped inviting them to family gatherings, and others followed. Aunts and uncles, once neutral, started declining their calls. Joseph and Ruth's reputation in our tight-knit community took a hit. Neighbors whispered about their selfishness, and their social circle shrank. Cheryl, meanwhile, faced her own fallout. Her engagement to Jeffrey Coleman, which my parents had celebrated so loudly, hit a rough patch. Jeffrey's family, who valued fairness, didn't take kindly to Joseph and Ruth's blatant favoritism. At a dinner with his parents, they questioned Cheryl about why her family skipped my wedding for her celebration in Hawaii. "It's not right," Jeffrey's mother said, her tone sharp. Cheryl tried to defend her parents, but Jeffrey later admitted to Mary that it caused tension. He started seeing Cheryl's role in the family dynamic differently, questioning her silence during my wedding. Their relationship, once solid, grew strained under the weight of those conversations. I heard these updates through Mary, who kept me in the loop. She'd call or drop by, sharing what she'd heard from relatives or mutual friends. "Joseph and Ruth are starting to feel it," she said one day, her eyes gleaming with satisfaction. "They thought they could get away with it." I didn't gloat, but I felt a quiet justice. Their actions had consequences, and I wasn't the one enforcing them. Dr. Scott in our sessions helped me process this. "You set a boundary and the world is responding," she said. "That's not your burden, it's theirs." While their lives unraveled, mine bloomed. Michael and I were building a home together, filled with love and laughter. One evening, as we sat on our couch, he took my hand and said, "I think we're ready for the next step." We'd been talking about starting a family, and soon after, I found out I was pregnant. The news filled me with joy I hadn't thought possible. I told Nicole first, who squealed and insisted on planning a baby shower. "You're going to be the best mom," she said, hugging me tight. George and Diane were overjoyed, already knitting tiny blankets and offering to babysit. My pregnancy brought a new focus. I spent hours designing a nursery, sketching patterns for the walls. Work was thriving too. I landed a major contract with a local company, my designs earning praise across Toledo. Each success felt like a step further from the shadow of my family's rejection. Michael and I took walks along the Maumee River, dreaming about our child's future. "They'll grow up knowing they're loved," he said, his hand on my growing belly. That promise grounded me. Mary visited often, becoming a sister in a way Cheryl never was. She'd bring over baby clothes and share stories of our extended family's shifting dynamics. Joseph tried to explain himself at a reunion, she said, but no one bought it. I didn't ask for details, I didn't need them. My focus was on the life I was building, not the one I'd left behind. Nicole and Dr. Scott kept me centered, reminding me to celebrate my strength. "You've created something beautiful," Dr. Scott said in one session. "That's what matters." As my due date approached, I felt a peace I'd never known. Michael and I attended parenting classes, laughing at our clumsy attempts to swaddle a doll. George and Diane hosted a small gathering for us, their warmth, a stark contrast to the family I'd known. I realized I'd found something better, a chosen family who valued me. Joseph, Ruth, and Cheryl were fading into the background, their lives marked by the consequences of their choices. I didn't wish them ill, but I didn't miss them either. That peace I found after letting go of my family became the foundation for my new life. Holding our newborn daughter, I felt a love so deep it reshaped my understanding of family. Michael and I named her Emma, a name we chose for its simplicity and warmth. As I looked into her tiny eyes, I realized the journey I'd taken wasn't just about escaping pain, it was about discovering who I was and what truly mattered. The lessons I learned through years of rejection, boundaries, and rebuilding are ones I carry every day, and I want to share them with you. Growing up, I thought family was an obligation, a tie you couldn't break, no matter how much it hurt. Joseph and Ruth's favoritism, their dismissal of my milestones, and their demands taught me otherwise. Family isn't about blood, it's about love and respect. When they chose Cheryl's engagement over my wedding, when they demanded money, I didn't owe, I saw their true priorities. Cutting them off wasn't easy, but it was necessary. Setting boundaries meant valuing myself, something I'd struggled with for years. Dr. Scott helped me see that self-acceptance isn't selfish, it's survival. My chosen family became my strength. Michael, my husband, stood by me through every tear and triumph. His unwavering support showed me what love looks like. Nicole, my best friend, brought light to my darkest days, pushing me to keep creating, keep growing. George and Diane, Michael's parents, welcomed me as their own, proving that family can be built, not just born. Mary, my cousin, became the sister. Cheryl never was, her loyalty a reminder that I wasn't alone. Even Dr. Scott, with her steady guidance, helped me rebuild my sense of worth. These people taught me that family is who shows up, who sees you, who stays. Holding Emma, I knew I'd give her the love I'd craved as a child. Michael and I promised to raise her with kindness, to celebrate her for who she is, not who we want her to be. My career flourished too, with new design projects pouring in, each one a testament to my resilience. I didn't need Joseph, Ruth, or Cheryl to validate me anymore. Their absence left a mark, but it didn't define me. I'd built a life filled with purpose and joy, surrounded by people who chose me back. Now I want to hear from you. We all have stories of family, of hurt, of healing. Maybe you've had to walk away from someone you loved, or maybe you've found a chosen family who lifted you up. Share your story in the comments. How did you overcome family wounds? What did you learn about yourself? Your experiences could inspire someone else to take that first step toward healing. I read every comment, and I'm here to listen, just as you've listened to me. This journey taught me to let go of what doesn't serve me and to hold tight to what does. Self-acceptance means knowing your worth even when others don't see it. Boundaries aren't walls, they're doors to a better life. And family, It's not about who you're born to, but who you choose to build with. Michael, Emma, Nicole, Mary, George, and Diane. They're my family, built on love and respect. That's the legacy I want for my daughter, and it's the lesson I hope you take from my story. Looking back, I'm grateful for the pain, because it led me here. I'm not the girl who begged for approval anymore. I'm a wife, a mother, an artist, a woman who knows her value. If you're struggling with family, know this. You don't have to stay in a place that hurts you. You can choose yourself, find your people, and build a life that feels like home. Share your story below, and let's lift each other up. That's what family, true family, does. This is my story, and I'm stronger for it.